The Raiders have been very busy off the field. Now it's time to get busy on the field. Week 7 opponent, the Rams, will break down the Raiders and Rams. We'll do that on today's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for Thursday, October 17th, 2024.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen of the day. Make sure you subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts to get the latest edition of the show as soon as it becomes available. And as always, if you're checking us out on YouTube, you know we appreciate that. The show grows each and every day, and that's because of your support, Raider Nation, and because of the job that my man Ari does behind the scenes, making sure we're looking good and sounding good. We definitely appreciate him. We shout him out. He's on Twitter. You can shout him out there as well, at Ari Produces. You can hit me up on Twitter, at your boy Q254. And we got the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line at 707-654-4693. Your calls and texts do not come up in segment number 3 today because it is Crossover Thursday. So for anyone who is new to the show, or even someone who's, a listener that's in and out and don't realize exactly what we do on Thursdays, every single Thursday throughout the course of the regular season, we always take a look at, who the next opponent is for the Silver and Black. And up next is the Rams. They're coming off their bye week. It's week 7 action. It's at Sofi Stadium. So that host of that show will come together and we'll break down Rams and we'll break down Raiders. So Doug McCain, one of the two hosts of Locked On Rams, along with Travis Rogers, they both do a really good job. Doug McCain and myself will break down all things Rams and we'll break down all things Raiders. We'll talk about the biggest storylines offensively and defensively for both teams and give you 3 keys to victory for each team. How do they come away with a victory out of SoFi Stadium coming up on Sunday? That's jam-packed in today's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. So wall-to-wall coverage of the Rams and the Raiders. We'll jump right into part 1 of that conversation after I tell you about the title sponsor of the show, which on Crossover Thursdays is always Prize Picks. Download the app, use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. So let's go ahead and hop right into it. I'll tell you more about them later on the show, but right now, we got to get into segment number 1 and part 1 of the conversation with Doug McCain. And since the Raiders are on the road at SoFi Stadium, even though it's home away from home that they haven't had very much success at, there in SoFi Stadium, you know the Raider fans are going to be there. Raider Nation is going to show up and show out as they always do. The team on the field is what's got to show up and show out, and we'll see what that looks like. Obviously, life after Davante Adams. But part 1 of the conversation, we talk all things Silver and Black. Doug McCain and myself, we're talking offensive storylines and defensive storylines when it comes to the Raiders. Here's part 1 of that conversation.
What is the pulse of Raider Nation right now? Is there this season, not a lot of optimism based on the quarterback play, based on where they're at, but then you got Tom Brady in the ownership role, Davante Adams is out. Just kind of what's the pulse of Raider Nation right now, Q?
Well, offensively, it's, there's life after Davante Adams now. And so a lot of people want to know what it's going to look like. There's some in Raider Nation that the sky is falling, the season is over, start looking at the draft. Maybe the coach isn't the right coach, the GM's not the right GM. There's some that are extreme one way. There's others that are like, okay, well, there's 6 games in the books. Davante Adams is now in New York. Aiden O'Connell's the quarterback. How are they going to fix what's ailing them, right? And that's kind of where I'm at right now because their offense has been really nothing. I mean, there's been no rhyme or reason to their offense. They've had a couple good moments here and there, but there's nothing been consistent about their offenses. So for me, that's my big question. How do you figure this out? I suggested to Antonio Pierce earlier this week when we met with them, is there a chance that maybe you put the OC, Luke Getsy, up in the booth? And he said, well, we've talked about it. We haven't made a decision on that. So maybe that's a move that they make. But, so far, it's just, like I said, been a lot of inconsistencies. Even when it's been good, it hasn't been good enough multiple times. So there's a lot of questions about how they're going to get this thing jump-started. Aiden O'Connell obviously did some good things his rookie year that helped Antonio Pierce get the interim job. And then Gardner Minshew wins the starting quarterback job out of training camp and preseason. And it really wasn't like he went into training camp preseason and just dominated and showed that, okay, he's the guy. It's just neither one of them was, the guy that stood out the most. And so for multiple reasons, Antonio Pierce started Gardner Minshew, but he's gone to Aiden O'Connell, and he said that he expects him to be the guy the rest of the way unless something happens. Like they totally fall off and there's a bunch of terrible play or, of course, injury, which happens across the league. So there's a lot of questions with the Raiders offense, but now this is the first game that's officially life after Davante Adams, even though he hasn't played the last couple games. So we'll see what it looks like. We'll see if a cloud has been lifted off the organization since it's now in their rearview mirror.
Yeah, and clearly that's been a little bit of a distraction, of course, all the rumors. I mean, he hasn't played for, what is it, since week 3. He's been out with
Yeah.
a hamstring injury, so he wasn't in the fold. And then it felt like he slept over at, exactly, right? I feel like he slept over at Aaron Rodgers' house. He appears right behind McAfee in the show. It felt like, okay, he had one foot out the door. He wanted to get out of Las Vegas. And I think the interesting thing, when you look at these two teams, you look at this Rams team heading into this season, you had all the momentum of last year where you won 10 games. You were a surprise playoff team. You almost beat that Lions team on the road in wild card weekend. And then you're heading into this year and you made these signings. You brought Trey White into the fold. Your big offseason signing was Jonah Jackson. You got Cam Curl. And you're optimistic about the season. Puka Nacua, the 5th-round pick. He's this all-world rookie. Cooper Kupp is back healthy. Kyron Williams, this offensive line. But you suffer the injuries to Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua early. The defense is a situation where you basically have practice squad players as backups trying to be starters in that kind of scenario. But you look at these two teams. The Rams, 3 of their 4 losses were by 1 touchdown or less, right? They could have won these games, and you're looking at close to 500 heading to the bye, feeling better about things, getting healthy. You look at this Raiders team, they trail by 20-plus points in 3 of their last 4 games. And you look at the quarterbacks they face, Andy Dalton, Bo Nix, Justin Fields, right? This version of Matthew Stafford, yes, he's not the spring chicken Matthew Stafford, but you have to feel better about him in those situations. And you talk about the quarterback play for the Raiders. I mean, Gardner Minshew, there was some talk he outplayed Aiden O'Connell during training camp, and he won the job during preseason, but now Aiden O'Connell's back under center. How are we feeling about the quarterback play heading into this one, Q?
I mean, it's a big question. I mean, it really is. It's a big question on what it's going to look like. I think that the team around Aiden probably has a lot of confidence in him just because they know what he did last season. And again, he's had one game that he started. That was last week against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And, it looked good in the first drive, right? They went 10 plays, 70 yards and scored a touchdown, took more than 5 minutes off the clock. But then after that, it was 3 plays, 4 plays, 3 plays. And this is all like 6 yards, 9 yards, 8 yards, 4 yards, minus 19. Like, it's just nothing. So he's got to find a way to get into a rhythm, get the playmakers the ball. Brock Bowers is as advertised, the rookie tight end out of Georgia. He's fantastic. But, Jacoby Myers was out last week with an ankle injury. So it looks like maybe on Friday they're going to really see if he can go. He worked off to the side a little bit on Wednesday. So it looks like he's starting to come back. They really need him out there. I mean, with him out there, it gives them a good 1-2 punch. With him not out there, it gives them a 1 punch with Brock Bowers. So guys like Trey Tucker and DJ Turner have to step up. And, I don't know if they're really ready for that role consistently yet. I like Trey Tucker, I should say, a lot, but DJ Turner is really still kind of young in the game when it comes to being a wide receiver. Special teams guy, great, but he's still young in the game when it comes to being a wide receiver. So I think he's still trying to mature. So, we'll see. The quarterback play is a little questionable here and there. And I think a lot of it has to do with the OC. Is he going to dial up the right play calls? Can he set up a play in the first quarter that's going to actually come back later in the fourth quarter to dominate or, play better chess than Sean McVay and the Rams? And we'll see about that. And, the other part about the offense goes directly to the defense. The defense, it steps up to the challenge. It stops the opposing team, gets the ball back to the offense. But then, as I mentioned, 3 plays, 4 plays, 3 plays, 4 plays. Then the defense is back on the field, right? And so it's just like there's no continuity. There's no just kind of showcasing and complimenting the defense. And so when they do step up and make some plays, then the offense isn't doing anything. And then all of a sudden, they start to break down a little bit, and that's how the floodgates open. I mean, literally against Pittsburgh, it was 12-7 at halftime. And then you see the final score, 32-13, right? I mean, it's just...
Yeah, the big start was the Raiders, too. I mean, versus the Broncos, too, and they had 20 unanswered, right?
Right, exactly. That's what I'm saying. So it's just, the defense does a good job, but it hasn't been able to do it all game long throughout the course of these games so far this season. It's gone in spurts, and that was really supposed to be the strength of the team this year, and it hasn't quite done that. Now they're kind of riddled with injuries. Christian Wilkins, he's out, and he was the big ticket free agent that they picked up. Malcolm Kuntz never made it to the regular season. He tore his ACL. Marcus Epps, the safety, is the quarterback of the defense. He tore his ACL, so he's out. You know what I mean? So there's been a lot of injuries, but don't tell Ram fans about injuries, because the Rams have been riddled with injuries as well.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And we're going to dive deeper into the matchup, into the matchups I think will decide this game. But I mean, you look at the Rams; they're 4-3 after bye under Sean McVay. Raiders 5-10 versus teams coming off a bye since 2010. Matthew Stafford's been really good against the Raiders throughout his career. You got to feel good about the Rams heading into this one. Let's just be honest. I mean, this is the Rams season. Okay. I mean, your chances of making the playoffs after 1-4 start are extremely bleak as it is, but you lose on Sunday to a Raiders team that's towards the bottom as well. And it's about, okay, who are the guys moving forward, right? It's about just purely evaluating talent, looking about your place in the draft. But do want to talk to you about Antonio Pierce coming up.
So there was part one of the conversation, talking all things Raiders, offensive and defensive storylines. Obviously, offensive storylines, it's life after Davante Adams. Yes, I know he hasn't played for the past couple games, but Davante Adams is no longer there. So now everyone in that locker room, everyone on that roster knows, hey, we've got a bigger job to fill. We've got to step up. We've got to find a way to make this offense go. It has not had any kind of rhyme or reason really the whole season. There's been nothing that's been consistent about the Raiders offense. So they've got to find a way to build some consistency. Obviously, getting Jacoby Myers would be big if they can get him back. We don't know just yet. He didn't practice on Wednesday. He was off to the side, even though AP said that they're looking to try to get him back. It's really going to depend on what he does Friday at practice. If they can get Jacoby Myers back, I feel like that they have a really good opportunity offensively, but it's going to come down to having number 16 out there on the field with number 89, Brock Bowers, who obviously is a big-time weapon. Defensively, you already know who's going to step up outside of Max Crosby. You know what 98 is going to bring to the table? Who else is going to step up and make a difference? That's what remains to be seen. But that's enough about the silver and black. We'll talk all things Rams. We'll do that in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about a couple great sponsors here on the Locked On Raiders podcast, including Arena Club. For most of us that like collecting cards, the idea of spending $2,000 or more on, say, a Max Crosby rookie card, well, it just isn't in the cards. I love collecting. Back in the day, I was a big-time collector, but that's obviously some serious money to drop. Obviously, I'm a big Ricky Henderson fan as well. Maybe a Ricky Henderson rookie card could be that much. Even then, still don't want to pay that kind of money. But thanks to slab packs from arenaclub.com, it's possible to score gem mints for a fraction of their retail price. Every card that is listed was hit from last week's Arena Club Slack Pack drop. Arena Club is the only repack that provides real value, a complete view of all possible cards, and clear rates for each one of them. Arena Club Slab Packs are revolutionizing the repack game with transparency. After your pools are revealed, they'll immediately be placed in your showroom for safekeeping, selling, trading, or auction. The Arena Club grading process is accurate, fast, and transparent with the full grade rationale provide an explanation of how your card was scored. Whether you're buying, selling, or trading, or even displaying, Arena Club is the card collecting platform you have to check out. Right now, you can get 10% off your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/LockedOnNFL. Use the promo code LockedOnNFL. That's arenaclub.com/LockedOnNFL. Code LockedOnNFL for 10% off your first purchase. I also want to tell you about our good friends at Game Time. Maybe you're thinking about going to the game on Sunday at SoFi Stadium. You want to go out there and check out the Silver and Black, take on the Rams and the Raiders home away from home, even though they haven't had a lot of success there. Game Time can help you get there. All you got to do is go to Game Time. They have a filter that filters out all the fluff so you can just see all the incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of different tickets. And it's not just sporting events. You can go to theater, you can go to comedy shows, you can go to concerts, you can go to movies, whatever has a ticket, Game Time has you covered. And the thing I really love about Game Time, I think this might be the best feature that some people take for granted, is the fact that you can get your panoramic view from your seat in the app before you actually buy your ticket. So a lot of people are, pretty particular about what it looks like around them, what the view of the event is from their seat, and they want to check it out ahead of time. That's me. I know that because I'm that guy. So that's why that is such a big deal to me, a panoramic view of your seat before you ever buy your tickets. Right now, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Again, terms do apply. Create the account, use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL. It's all one word, LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Time to jump into part 2 of the conversation, talking all things Raiders and Rams. We dissected the Raiders, broke them down in segment number 1, talking about the offensive and defensive storylines, what the Raiders need to do as far as just a team and how to establish something offensively and defensively, how to come up to some stops and, just kind of what to look for. Let the Rams fans know exactly what to look out for. So what do you expect from the Rams? Well, that's what we need to do now, right? Jump into that. We need to hear all the goodies about the Rams, where they are offensively, how they are health-wise, what they look like defensively. Obviously, it's a new life without Aaron Donald. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into part 2 of the conversation. Doug McCain, host of Locked On Rams. He's going to break down all things Rams, offensive and defensive storylines. Let's jump into that conversation.
Q, in our second segment, I always find it fascinating anytime you get a interim coach that wins over the locker room, has success, and then the front office buys into it and gives that guy the job. And we saw what Antonio Pierce did last season. He had a 5-4 finish in 2023 after Josh McDaniels was fired. And then now you're a year later, if the team's at 2-4, you had that whole business decision thing that I don't know if that rubbed the players the wrong way, but just kind of what's the temperature of Antonio Pierce right now? And is the honeymoon phase over? Are some people starting to question him as the head coach, or just kind of where do you think he stands right now as the Raiders HC?
I mean, yeah, the honeymoon phase is definitely over. I mean, that's one of those things. Once you become the full-time head coach, it's all on you, everything. I mean, it's easy to be the substitute teacher. It's hard to be the full-time teacher, right? So that's who he was last year. So now he's learning. He's made some mistakes. I think he would admit that he's probably made mistakes, some misquotes that he had through the media and some of the business decisions. Maybe that was something that he shouldn't have said. I don't think it was a coincidence that after he made that business decision comment, Davante Adams never played for the Raiders again, never played another snap. I don't think that was a coincidence, right? And so, but he does his things his way. That's what everyone loved about him last season when he was the interim head coach, and he's going to continue to do that. So, he's going through the players that want to be there, guys that don't want to be there, like a Davante, are now in New York, right? I mean, so it's just kind of the nature of the beast. But he's learning on the fly. He's got a lot of experienced head coaches around him, so he's trying to lean on them a little bit, but. I mean, it's just kind of what it is. When you're in the NFL, it's very hard to win. And especially when you don't have very much experience, it's really hard to, really be that guy. But he's working it out. We'll see what it looks like when it's all said and done. I believe that he'll, be around for at least a couple years. But at the same time, it's a production-based business, as he tells us all the time. If you don't produce, you won't be in business. So we'll see what happens. You mentioned earlier that this is the Rams season. I'm not going to say it's the Raiders season, but I mean, they're 2-4. They don't want to be 2-5. And if the Raiders lose on Sunday to the Rams, then the rumblings from, Raider Nation that are irritated and think that, he wasn't the right guy for the job and they should have gone after Jim Harbaugh instead of hiring him, the interim, are just going to get louder and louder and louder. So, I mean, just for the sake of, the conversations and the rumblings to die down a little bit, needs to go and start winning some games. They got 3 before the bye week. So we'll see what happens. But I mean, this is a tough Rams team. The Raiders don't have a lot of success at SoFi, and I know the record doesn't show it for the Rams, but I know that they've got a lot of talent. They've got a really good head coach. And so I'm sure there's a lot that the Rams are going to be bringing to the table come Sunday.
Yeah, the truth of the matter is when you have a head coach like Sean McVay, a quarterback like Matthew Stafford, you always have a chance to win. It's just about finding a way to have this defense keep the opponents at bay. And if you look at the Packers game, 2 turnovers, both those turnovers led to touchdowns against the Packers. So kind of limiting that. But as far as the biggest storyline in Ramsland right now is, will Cooper Kupp be active? Will he be back? Deal with that high ankle sprain today. Sean McVay, he told us there's a possibility he could be ready this week. There's also a possibility that he might not be ready. So great. I love that. Okay. But I mean, look, the truth of the matter is you got a short week. You're playing on TNF the following week against the Vikings. Do you rush him back? You got 2 games on turf. There's that to consider. I think when you think about where this Rams team is, one of the big issues, it's been an issue for more than a year now, is their red zone efficiency, their red zone scoring. They're 24th in the National Football League. You look at your Raiders, they're 7th. I mean, surprisingly high in that category. And having Cooper Kupp, someone that can really have that chemistry with Matthew Stafford. You can use him on jet sweeps. You can use on, the back shoulder fade, kind of a controversial play of the effectiveness of it. When it comes to Stafford and Kupp, it's an extremely effective weapon for this team. And just having that security blanket to go to, if Cooper Kupp is back, that's going to change the dynamic of this offense. Because the truth of the matter is yes, these guys have performed well when you consider where they're at. But you look at Jordan Whittington. He's a rookie out of Texas. Tutu Atwell, he's still trying to find his way in the NFL. I think one of the interesting matchups in this game is with Davante Adams out. I mean, you look at your boy, Brock Bowers. I mean, I looked up his stat today, was pretty mind-blowing when it came to Brock Bowers and how many times he's been targeted. I mean, he leads all tight ends with 37 catches, and that's 9 more than anyone else at the position, 384 yards. That's 80 more yards than anyone at the position. You have to assume that he's going to get more targets and he's going to be a focal point of the offense. On the flip side, one of the big offseason acquisitions for the Rams was Colby Parkinson. And Colby Parkinson just has not performed like we had hoped for the Rams this season. He's led the team in targets, but still hasn't really stepped up and been that red zone threat that we had hoped it would be. But what do you expect from Brock Bowers in this one? And do you expect his targets to go way up with Davante in New York?
Yeah, man, I definitely expect Brock Bowers to always be a focal point of the team. Even when Davante was there, he was still going to be a big focus. I mean, there was a reason why Tom Telesco went out there and made the move for him. You know, the question is how the opposing defenses are always going to play him, and now they're going to shadow him as the real deal number one guy. That's why I mentioned earlier, Jacoby Myers, if he comes back, that'll help out everybody because that'll take a little bit of attention away from Brock Bowers. He's going to get all the attention now, but Jacoby Myers is really good as well. So he's a really good compliment. So I think that if the Raiders could get him back, that would be big. But I did want to throw it to you and ask, with Brock Bowers being the guy that he is, as you know, you just rattled off the numbers. How do you see the Rams defending him? What's the game plan? How do they, deploy a way to try to slow him down?
Yeah, with the Rams this season, kind of their weakest spot really has been their inside linebacker play. I mean, Jacob Hummel, hopefully you see him get an opportunity, but the truth of the matter is that's definitely an area where you're going to see Chris Shula. He likes to use the star role, the slot defender in there, and a guy like Quint Lake trying to neutralize him. But the truth about this Rams defense is it's kind of the cliche, the bend but don't break, trying to keep guys in front of them. But unfortunately, it's been more breaking than bending really this season. When it comes to Brock Bowers, we've seen opposing teams really take advantage with their tight end play, especially out over the middle. So it's definitely going to be a major challenge. And then I think, too, you look at the rushing game. I mean, I think the running game between both teams, that's the biggest factor in this one. Because, I mean, one of the things that this Rams team has struggled with is stopping the run all season long. They've allowed more rushing yards per game, also most yards per pass attempt per game. And you look at how inept they've been. I mean, they've given up 157.6 rushing yards per game, right? And you look at this Raiders team,
Raiders can't
really struggled, right? I mean, the second worst in the NFL.
Right.
So
exactly.
If you can't stop this Raiders rushing attack, then you're not going to stop anyone. So I'm hoping that that's the area where the Rams will, for the first time this season, have some success. But a guy like Bowers, it's kind of one of those things where he's so talented. It's just about minimizing and limiting the damage. And that's kind of been Chris Shula and the Rams' MO all season long. But what really scares me is how the Rams defended the Packers tight end Tucker Kraft a couple weeks ago. I mean, a 66-yard touchdown. Trey White got absolutely roasted and cooked on that one. But they actually have improved since Darius Williams has been back, since Kobe Durant has done a better job on the boundary. So really, the secondary has been a weakness, but last couple weeks it has improved with the return of Darius Williams. But it's a tough task to try to defend that guy.
Yeah, no, it really is, man. He is as advertised. He really is. That was a great pick. Tom Telesco made it number 13 overall in this past April's draft. Everyone thought that the Raiders were going to get a quarterback. If not a quarterback, then an offensive lineman. If not offensive lineman, maybe a cornerback. Instead, they go out and get a tight end. That was the one position I never profiled. I never paid attention to. I never thought about because I just didn't think Brock Bowers was even going to be a guy that'd be sitting around there at number 13 overall. And here you go. Here's a gift from the draft gods when you get Brock Bowers. He is a playmaker. He is as advertised, and he's going to be the main key to the Raiders' offensive success if they have offensive success come Sunday or any other game the rest of the season. Like I said, he's the real deal. So excited to see him and what he can do the rest of his rookie year.
Yeah, just what makes him such a matchup nightmare is just the fact that, I mean, you can line up anywhere on the field, right, and he can be dynamic and he can make a play from there. So, yeah, I mean, you look at what he's on pace for.
You don't want a linebacker to line up across from him because he's faster than the linebacker. You don't want a corner to line up against him because he's stronger than him. So, you know what I mean? It's like when he gets the ball in his hands, he does a lot of really good things with it afterwards. So that's always what is so fun to see. And I don't even think that the Raiders have started to use him as much as they should. Like, we haven't seen the jet sweeps consistently to him. We've seen him line up in the backfield a couple times, but he can line up outside. He can line up tight. He can line up like a traditional tight end. He blocks a little bit. I mean, there's so many different things that you could do with him. And I think that the Raiders are still trying to figure out exactly what he can do. But I can tell you right now, he could do a little bit of everything. Actually, I think he could do a lot of everything.
Yeah, it's like, hey, is Brock Bowers a great tight end? Is he a great wide receiver? Is he this? The answer is just yes across the board, right?
Great football
it's a
player.
Word yes, right? So I'm excited to watch him in action. I mean, I dedicated a couple episodes this offseason to try to go after Brock Bowers. There was actually some rumors that the Rams were interested in trading up for him. I think there were some rumors, too, that the Raiders were trying to trade up for one of the big three quarterbacks if they could get him. They didn't kind of like that next tier, but still, I think you end up with the right guy, and that's definitely a building block for your future.
There you go. That's the skinny right there on all things you need to know offensively and defensively when it comes to the Rams. So what are the Raiders going to need to do? What are the Rams going to need to do to leave SoFi Stadium on Sunday with a victory? We'll give you 3 keys to victory each. We'll do that coming up in segment number 3 as we close things out on today's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about FanDuel. And NFL fans, you can start the season at any time you want. It doesn't have to be at the beginning of the season. We know that we're going into week 7 right now. If that's what you want to jump into, you could jump into that because FanDuel is America's #1 sports book. You can start right now. And if you get a hunch in the middle of the game, then you can go ahead and go on to FanDuel.com, America's #1 sports book, and you can go ahead and make a wager. If you feel one way or the other about the Rams and the Raiders and who you feel like is going to win and who you feel like the momentum is shifting towards, again, you can go check them out right in the middle of the game at FanDuel.com. You can check out the latest stats. You can view live play-by-play and so much more. It's all on the same page where you place your bet. You'll actually get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Where do you do that at? FanDuel.com, which is America's #1 sportsbook. Here we go, Raider Nation, segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Time to break down what you really need to know. Keys to victory for each team. 3 from the Raiders, 3 from the Rams. What is it going to take for the Silver and Black to get a dub? What is it going to take for the Rams to get a dub? All we know is that the Raiders need to find a way to go into their home away from home and find a way to get it done, right? So we're going to break it down here in segment number 3, Doug McCain and myself. Before we get into that, I do want to remind you that Crossover Thursday is presented by Prize Picks. Download the app and use code LOCKEDONNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Doug McCain and myself giving you 3 keys to victory for each team coming up on Sunday. Here it is, part 3 of our conversation.
Q, what is your biggest key for the Raiders winning on Sunday?
Well, look, I look at it like this. I got 3 big things that I think that the Raiders have to do. I like to call these things non-negotiables that they have to do to have an opportunity to win this game on Sunday. And it's funny, usually I can really, get deep into the weeds and into the woods when it comes to all these different things. But the Raiders haven't been doing the basics very good. Right now, they lead the league in missed tackles. So the number one thing they have to do is they have to limit their missed tackles. They really do. They have to be sure tacklers. They did a really good job in the first half against Pittsburgh last week and not so much in the second half. They struggled in the second half, and so that just kind of opened up the floodgates. And again, it was a 12-7 score at halftime, and it ends up being 32-13 when it's all said and done. So you can see that the wheels fell off coming up in the second half. So tackling is a must. They also must create a couple turnovers. Their offense is just not good enough. I would be lying to you if I said it was, and I'm not going to do that to you, right? The offense is not good enough to sustain drives up and down the field. I had it written down somewhere. Matter of fact, I think I have it over here somewhere. Where is it? Check this out real quick. First drive of the game against Pittsburgh, 10 plays, 70 yards, took 5 minutes off the clock, touchdown. Rest of the first half, 3 plays, 6 yards, punt. 3 plays, 9 yards, punt. 4 plays, 14 yards, fumble. 5 plays, 18 yards, halftime. they're not good enough to sustain drives consistently, right? They had 10-play drives the whole game last week against Pittsburgh. So they've got to have a couple short fields so they can go 5 or 6 plays, but get into the end zone. So it's going to be up to the defense to create a couple turnovers, get the ball to them in a favorable position, maybe even in plus territory, and be able to go and score like that and just take advantage of, like I said, a short field. So you got to tackle, you got to have the short tackling, you got to create a couple turnovers, and offensively, you've got to get the ball to the playmakers' hands, but you've got to have, some consistency when it comes to, Brock Bowers. And really, I guess I should take it back to, you got to establish some kind of run game. Like you mentioned, the Rams aren't good at stopping the run. The Raiders have only gone over 100 yards, one time this season? That was against, who was that against? That was, against Cleveland. They went for 152 yards against Cleveland. That's the only game. So they've got to get some kind of run game going. So tackle, create a couple turnovers, establish the run game, and see where they can go from there. But the offense has been on the struggle bus all season long. I'd like to see them get off that bus and show some kind of life and some consistency throughout the course of the game.
Yeah, I think on the takeover topic, the Rams bottom third in the league when it comes to takeaways, and this is a Raiders team. They have the most takeaways and the fewest takeaways. I mean, they have the most giveaways and the fewest takeaways in the NFL. They've taken the ball away just twice all season. That's the fewest in the league. Is also given away 12 times. That's more than every team in the National Football League. They have a minus 10 turnover differential, and that's 3 worse than any team in the NFL. So it's another thing, just like we're talking about the rushing topic. If you're not going to take away against the Raiders, who are you going to do it against? If you're not going to stop the rush against the Raiders, who are you going to do it against? I mean, this really should be the ultimate, okay, let's go in there at home at SoFi Stadium and win this game and try to make something of this season. Take it game by game and view this as, okay, win today, get healthy, just like that, try to get to 500 and make something of this season. Another thing we want to see is, look, Matthew Stafford, 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Yes, he can still make all the throws. You see the arm talent, the big time throws. You see the arm angles doing what they do with Stafford. He can still make all the throws, but one, he's kind of going toward butter knives a little bit when it comes to the receiving core, the tight end that really hasn't played up to expectations. I think you need to see a signature Matthew Stafford performance like we saw last year after the bye week, where he really got things going. Him and Kyron Williams really led this team to the postseason, as well as a defense that stepped their way up. Man, I wish Aaron Donald would come back. Miss that guy so much. I mean, if you're watching this, AD, it's not too late, man. We need you back. But throughout his career, Matthew Stafford, he's balled out against the Raiders. I mean, throughout his career, small sample size, but still 2-1 against the Raiders throughout his career. I mean, he had 2 games with 390 plus passing yards, and the one game he lost, he had a 406-yard game with 3 touchdowns in 2019. So they need Matthew Stafford to come up big, make all the throws, limit the turnovers. I mean, against the Packers, you saw some pretty ugly interceptions by his standard. You saw a bad turnover by Kyron Williams as well. And then this is a team that is built to run the football. You bring in a Jonah Jackson, who you still haven't gotten the production from him. He's been injured with a shoulder injury, but you still have Kevin Dotson. You have a Bo Limmer, who is a young rookie at center. I mean, you just have to find a way to run the football against this Raiders team, and hopefully you find some way to salvage your season. I don't know if you throw out predictions on the crossover episode. I mean, you can't wait for that, right?
No predictions.
I'm not going to throw out a prediction on you.
I have no idea what to expect. I would be lying to you if I told you what I have to expect. And it's funny, I've been doing this for a long time. I feel like I have a really good idea of who this Raiders team is each and every year. This year, the last handful of games, I really haven't had any idea what to expect game in and game out, which I hate that that's the case, but they have not established who their identity is, who they are as a team. So I really don't know what they do really well as of yet. So it's like, I can't say, well, I know that they're going to run the rock really well, or they're going to pass the ball really well. Brock Bowers is going to go off. I just don't know what to expect game in and game out. I hate that that's the case, but that's the case.
Yeah, no, that's the case for this side too. I mean, we kind of go into every week feeling somewhat optimistic, but I think that another thing you want to look at is, can this Rams defense finish? I mean, this team struggled to finish in the red zone, finish halves. I mean, everything you can look at, it's about finishing. And one thing you want to see on Sunday is you want to get home. The Rams are 5th in the National Football League in pressure rate, but they also have the 5th fewest sacks in the NFL. So you can apply that pressure. They're proving to do that with Jared Verse and Braden Fisk. They're the top 2 rookies when it comes to generating pressure, but you got to get home and get some sacks. And hopefully we see that on Sunday as well. So, yeah, I mean, look, this is a game where when the Raiders come to Los Angeles, let's be honest, it means something. It's special.
Yeah,
because this town has a lot of Raiders fans, lots of Rams fans as well. The fan base is continuing to grow. But, I mean, when the Cowboys, the 49ers, or any of these teams come to town, it's the Raiders that have the deepest roots in this town. So it definitely means something. And, you know, I am reminded of the great Baker Mayfield moment. He hops off the plane and just beats the Raiders, right, in that down season. I mean, of course. I mean, so hopefully I'm hoping that beating the Raiders this year won't be one of the only Rams highlights for the 2024 season. Hopefully there's much more than that. But to sit here and say, oh, I'm fully confident the Rams are going to steamroll this Raiders team and get back on track, I'd be lying to you, right? So I am expecting this team with Sean McVay after a bye week to come out swinging and executing well. I think if Cooper Kupp does play, it will definitely bring a nice charge to this offense. And these rookies are only getting better. I do like the Rams to win this one. That's how I feel right now. I'll throw out the score prediction on Friday's show, but I got the Rams winning this one. But hey, to say I feel good about that, I'd be lying.
Yeah, I hear you. Believe me, I hear you. It's a tough call, man. I mean, neither one of these teams are stellar. They're not just lighting it up right now so far in the season. They both need a win. So, yeah, I'm just hoping that the Raiders go out there and put their best effort on the field. And if they do that and they play a pretty clean game, I feel confident that they can go and win a game. But like I said, when I went back to the keys to what I had, those are the non-negotiables that they have to have. If they do that, they give themselves a chance, and that's not guaranteeing a dub. But if they do the non-negotiables, at least I'll put them in a better position.
For sure. Real quick, I mean, I can't let you out of here without getting your take on Tom Brady getting that ownership stake. I mean, how do you feel good about that? I mean, do you want to see him starting on Sunday? I mean, just how do you feel about Brady joining that the Raiders Nation like that?
Yeah, it's interesting. It really is, because he's a minority owner, and it's very rare that minority owners are celebrated like the Raiders are celebrating him, right? I mean, I was at the facility on Wednesday, and he arrived there on Wednesday, and I mean, the whole building had, everyone came out of their offices, and they all greeted him right there in the lobby, and he's on the microphone talking to everybody, and there's reports that he's going to have more than just a minority stake in the team, as far as he's going to have some kind of decision-making power, which is interesting because he's a minority owner. So I don't know what his role is going to be defined. I'm waiting to hear from somebody official that has the power to say what he's going to do or what he can't do. I also want to see how it works with his Fox broadcasting duties, because there's so many rules that he can't really do that broadcasting job the way that he should. And we're in the business. We know how much it takes as far as research and sitting down with coaches and players and going to the facility and observing practices. And if he can't do that, can he really do his job to the level of an A-list guy, which he's on the A team for Fox? So there's a lot that goes into that. I'm still kind of in the wait and see. I don't think it can hurt the organization that he's, a minority owner. I just don't know how much it's going to help the organization moving forward. So I'm kind of in a wait and see mode when it comes to Tom Brady as part owner of the Silver and Black.
Yeah, it's like something where you see it and you're kind of excited about. I mean, it's just kind of cool just in general. But then you read about he's not permitted to attend in-person or online broadcast production meetings. You might have access to team facilities, players or coaches. You can't publicly criticize officials. So it's going to be interesting to see how this affects his broadcasting duties, which he's still getting used to. I mean, guys like Collinsworth and all the broadcasters, they go to practice and they're talking to people. So it's really interesting to see that. But hey, look, man, you finally got a winning quarterback with the Raiders right now in Tom Brady. You got to feel good about that. So got to feel bad. But what is my take on that? The Tuck rule still pisses me off. Okay. And I would have to get him to say something about that. You know what I'm saying? Like,
apparently he has. Someone said that he's, I think Mark Davis said that he admitted that it was a fumble, but I mean, that's great. That's great now. And look, to be fair to him, it wasn't his fault the officials called it bad. I mean, it was a terrible call by the officials. But
just of all teams, that's the team that he ends up on. I mean, that really sparked the run, but still, we all know the truth about that.
So there it is. There it was, Raider Nation. That is the blueprint. rolled out very well by Doug McCain, one of the hosts of Locked On Rams. Him and Travis Rogers do a fantastic job. Travis, I'm really good friends with, as a matter of fact. Doug, just getting to know, but I know that they do a hell of a job. So if you want to get more on the Rams, you want to keep up to date with the next team coming up on the schedule for the Silver and Black, definitely go check out their show. Very professional, and you know how I am. I really appreciate the very professional host, and they are definitely that. Doug McCain and Travis Rogers, hosts of Locked On Rams. Go ahead and check that out. And for the daily on the Raiders, you know what to go. We got you covered like a glove, right? That's how we do. So that's it. That's all. Coming up tomorrow, Raider Nation, will continue to go over the injury report, see if the Raiders are starting to get a little bit healthier. On Friday, we'll actually be talking to Antonio Pierce one more time. We'll see if there's any more news and notes. We'll get back to calls and texts. We'll have plenty of conversation here as well on the Locked On Raiders podcast. So coming up tomorrow, we close out the week really strong and get you ready for Week 7 action. Rams, Raiders, SoFi Stadium. So until then, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.